I have so many memories of Sarah and her optimism, but the bottom one for me comes from when she was about 2 years old. She was the happiest, most exuberantly happy baby I ever saw. She just overjoyed with everything in life. But the memory I cherish most, I think, is when she was about 2. I had agreed to take care of a pet parrot for the Scotts, our next door neighbors, while they were out of the country for a year. And it was the most god-awful thing you ever saw. It would bite you if you came near it to feed it. It was in a cage on a stand in our dining room. And some days I didn't even take the cover off it. I hated the thing so. His name was Pat. And every morning Sarah would drag the kitchen step stool out into the dining room, drag it step by step by step, and then she'd get it up under the cage and she'd climb up those steps. And she'd get right up eye to eye with this evil thing and she'd say, "Good morning, Pat." And never did bite her. And
I need to acknowledge Sarah's sisterness. I think that maybe because she was the youngest, maybe because Martha and I were only 16 months apart, she felt like she needed to make herself more known. But anyway, I've always really felt that Sarah's the glue. She's the glue with the sisters. And that scene of the sisters dancing and Fiddler on the Roof, when they dance across the top of the mountain and they're silhouetted. I know it's because Sarah said it herself, but it always reminds me of the three of us, and it always makes me think about Sarah.
All right, now I'm just going to let it run for a little bit, Michael. Try to come up with a remembrance for you. You know, it's not that I remember any one particular event, but I just remember how special that little part of Wayland, Massachusetts was. You know, with the Frymans right next door, I could go across the brook, play in Sarah's rock garden, or she could come through the woods and come to my house and play. It was very free, it was very open. When I look back now, I realize just how special it was. Good days. Happy birthday again, Sarah. How was that, Michael? Okay? All right.
I've always had this feeling that Sarah somehow exploded into my life when I was 13 years old, when they moved from Wayland. You know what I mean? Sarah has a way of making an entrance. And entrances she made, especially in the theater, all through middle school and high school. She was such a natural on stage. She made it look so easy. Now it makes perfect sense to me that she became such an engaging teacher, a teacher that people want to be with.
I'm trying to think of the time. It was when we met Sarah and Michael, it was 1980.
Just wanted to wish you a wonderful, happiest 50th birthday. Wish I was there to celebrate it with you. Can't believe you've already turned 50, half a century. Where does the time go? It seems like yesterday we were back at Main Street in Farmington, sitting around your kitchen, having laughs. It's just amazing how the time travels. Anyways, miss you and love you. Hope you have a wonderful day and hope to get together soon. Take care. Happy birthday.
I remember everyone was always welcome at Sarah's house. Her mom and dad used to do this smorgasbord on Christmas Eve that was the talk of the town. And I showed up one Christmas while we were in college, and the drinking age was 18, with a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone was so tense they were about ready to throw me out of the house, so I just opened up the bottle, put a couple of shots in a glass for myself with some ice cubes, and left the bottle on the counter. About 45 minutes later, the attitude was a lot lighter in that house, but the bottle was a lot emptier. It was one of the best parties we ever had. You remember it, Sarah? Happy birthday.
There was another time when the four of us went down to a lake. There was a lake nearby. One of the best days. We had so much fun, and no, that wasn't Sarah. That wasn't Sarah and Michael. It might have been Michael, but it wasn't Sarah.
I remember when I first met Sarah and Martha was introducing her to our seminar, and she stood up and her face would... hold on just a second.
Hi, Sarah. This is your old Uncle Jake, was calling on your 50th natal day. It seems only yesterday that you were a tiny baby girl being fussed over and dressed in pink by your big sisters, Amanda and Martha, and just a little later subjecting your poor, defenseless baby brother to the same well-intentioned but highly unspeakable indignities. Looking back, I particularly remember the crush you had on your family's pet chicken in Wayland, and the care and pride with which you dragged the family goat around your yard on a piece of string. But then you went and grew up. The years since have certainly been colorful ones for you. A BSN and broken neck from Vermont. Lots of fun and excitement as an intensive care nurse and EMT. A great marriage with no less than 2 handsome sons to show for it. A JD from Yukon, an impressive career in law, and even a passing acquaintance with MS. Who could ask for anything more? And now, just to top things off, you've managed to do the well-nigh impossible. Survive and adjust well to the social and cultural rigors of life in a far-off land deep in the heart of bush country. All I can say is this, Sarah. You've come a long way, baby. Enjoy this birthday to the very hilt and many more in years to come. Aunt Kitchi Koo joins me in sending our fondest regards.
So I'm going to tell you one story. In 1972, we got gifts for Easter of, we each got a rabbit. We got a white rabbit and a gray rabbit. And after we'd had the rabbits for a couple of days, Sarah came in the house crying, and she said to me, "My rabbit has a hair lip." I've never forgotten that. Think about it for a minute.
One afternoon, we went up to Sarah's room with Dr. and Mrs. Millis. And we stood at the window, and Sarah proceeded to have a tirade about some buildings that she could see from her. She said, "Those are absolutely the stupidest buildings I've ever seen. Just look at those buildings. They're shoeboxes." Yes, that's right. And she went on and on about these awful buildings which had been built right after World War II and as student dormitories. And when she finally ran out of steam, Dr. Millis said, "I always thought of him as Millis's genius." He had designed them.
You know, one of the things I remember best about Sarah was, it was actually something that actually Liz remembers best about Sarah. I didn't recall this, but Liz remembered this about Sarah. And that's, I can't remember it.
One thing I want to show you, because Sarah has many, many talents, that crocheting wasn't her only craft that she was good at. And she won't believe I still have these. But these overalls Sarah made for me. And you can see we have the Suki Duke thing here. We have a little very nice detail on the sides. We even have, see it, a Volkswagen Bug, which was my car, that she's brought in the back. And this, Sarah, has been our scarecrow on the porch since the boys were little, and I'm thrilled I could get into them.
Happy birthday, Sarah. It's Allison. I'm not that far behind you on this big day. Something I'd like to tell you about Sarah is that when she was in college, she was not very good at staying on hay wagons. In fact, she was known to fly off hay wagons, land on the ground, breaking her neck and ending up in the hospital emergency room in Burlington. From where I had to call her parents to say, she's okay, but she has broken her neck. I think that was one of the most memorable things about Sarah from college.
So I remember when I first met Sarah, and Martha was introducing her in a seminar, and she stood up, and her face was, hold on just a second.
Michael, this is Bob King again, and I want to wish our beautiful goddaughter a happy 50th birthday.
Hi, Michael. This is Phyllis, and we just wanted to leave a little message for our beautiful goddaughter, Sarah, who's turning 50. Seems impossible, but she's still bubbling, so she hasn't lost her little bubble.
The last time we were together, it was at Ruth's birthday party. And Sarah and Michael met us at the airport and drove us up to the, in the rain, as a matter of fact, to the inn.
We'll never really forget that beautiful day she was baptized when she, in that cute little white church. And I think my memory serves me, we walked to it.
Anyway, at this time, we just wanted to say a quick happy birthday to Sarah and also to Jeff, who's going to be there, and wish you all a wonderful time. It's been a great day.
Anyway, lovely little Sarah, have a happy birthday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
When I was younger, I remember I used to go up to Connecticut every summer and stayed with Sarah and Michael and just hung out with my cousins, Gordon and Andrew, and Sarah's family, and that was always fun. I would go up there in the summer sometimes too. And I know I was in Sarah's wedding. I was a flower girl when she and Michael got married. But I remember her parents had a really big house in Connecticut, and it was just really pretty, and I just remember running around the backyard, and her parents had Dalmatians, so whenever I see a Dalmatian, I always think about Sarah.
Sarah was one of the premier medical students in our class.
Well, like I was saying, I first met Sarah when... excuse me.
Happy birthday, dear Sarah. Half a century of greatly to be admired accomplishments. Wow. From one who is alarmingly close to the second half of that century, I say, keep it up. You're terrific. Much, much love from your erstwhile skiing and canoeing pal, LRB.
Was that she'd gone out running in Houston and came back to Michael all excited that she didn't realize how old Houston was, that she'd gone by these houses and they were in 1710, 1712, 1714, which in Connecticut, if you have an old house, you put the year the house was built, and obviously in Texas, nothing's that old, and they were all the addresses. But from Sarah's perspective, it was old Texas.
Probably the neatest memory I have, or the funniest memory I have, is going to the Kerrville Folk Festival with Sarah and Michael and Sarah's sister Amanda. We listened to music, we drank beer, we floated down the Guadalupe River, had a marvelous time. But what sticks out in my mind is just sitting around this old lady's little ice house kind of place, Ingram, Texas, just having the best time.
You know, this reminds me, we went out one night with the Fontenot's and we did tequila shots, and I don't even remember where it was, but I just remember that Sarah was the first one under the table.
As many of my friends know, I'm from Canada, and I came here and worked at Parkland, where I met Sarah, one of my dearest friends. And I learned a lot from Sarah, and one of the things I learned was how to really take a good coffee break. I met her in the patient education department, and Sarah would call me on, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a day, and we were pregnant, so we used that excuse as needing, you know, some sugar, and we'd go down to the health center and eat and eat and eat. So here's to Sarah, who taught me how to take a really good coffee break, American style.
And the baptism, we have pictures of the baptism.
I have Matthew in utero, and I'm about 8 months pregnant, and I've got Gordon sitting on top of Matthew, baptizing him with the whole family around the pool, I think, at the Crows. That was a huge weekend.
Well, one time when we lived in Galveston, Sarah and Michael came to visit, and our boys were toddlers at the time. And this was a big old Victorian house with 100-year-old hardware, some of which was kind of faulty. Sarah went into the bathroom, and one of the toddlers must have followed her in there and had a brief discussion, then left. At some point I hear Sarah calling out for help. And so I went into the bathroom, whereupon Sarah was seated on the throne with her breeches around her ankles, and she was saying, "Would you mind closing the door for me?" But through all of this was just incredible laughter on her part. She was not at all self-conscious about being caught with her breeches around her ankles, and she could hardly keep from falling off for all the laughter. And I think that Sarah has been well served by her sense of humor and by not taking herself too seriously for the first 50 years of her life. And I think that'll probably come in handy for the next 50. So happy birthday, Sarah.
First time I met Sarah, I think what struck me most is how loud she could talk. So I suggested that perhaps she should get her hearing checked, which she did. And there's nothing wrong with her hearing. She just talks loudly. And I guess that's a good thing for a lawyer.
I remember when sorry.
Sarah, this is Angela. I know you're not there, but I wanted to wish you the most wonderful 50th birthday. And I just hope you have a wonderful day, and whatever you want, you get it. And I really will miss being on the film, but we just couldn't work it out. Anyway, take care. I miss you. I hope I'll see you sometime soon. And have a wonderful, wonderful birthday. Bye.
My story for all of Sarah's friends is one that Sarah can probably tell from a different perspective. This is how I saw it.
One day Sarah and I went out with one of the esteemed faculty members here, who was our boss, and got absolutely plowed at lunchtime on a mixture of gin and brownies. Neither one of us were probably really big on gin, but we did brownie very well. At any rate, we came back to school absolutely, bombed, and suffered the inevitable consequences of that. Later on, when we were in practice, he became a judge.
I was a new judge. I'd been a judge for, 3 months. And I'd come from academic life, and so people sort of assumed I was probably a dry, desiccated sort who didn't live an interesting life and was all into books and law and all that sort of thing. Anyway, somehow my reputation for being a decent human being had to be made. Sarah contributed to it. Here's how. I'm at the courthouse one day, and I get a knock on the door. And a man comes to the door and says, "There's 2 young ladies here to see you." And they brought in contraband.
Sarah brought the brownies and I brought the gin. Unfortunately, you have to go through a metal detector to get through to see a judge these days. And we had a rather unhappy consequence, which ended up with my being escorted by the sheriff into the judge's chambers and the courtroom.
And around the corner, Sheriff Palmieri brings, with red faces, Ellen Rutt and Sarah Fontenot, bearing gifts. They tried to get through the metal detector with a bottle of gin and some brownies. The brownies were no problem. The gin bottle could have been a problem. And it came into my chambers. Well, my reputation from that point on was set. Not only did I hang out with young women like this and drink gin and brownies, drink gin and eat brownies with them, but they would be willing even to brave the security apparatus of the court to come and see me. So thanks, Sarah, for enhancing my reputation early on and making my life as a judge a little bit easier.
And she introduced me to the drink of margarita, a big old picture of it. For a gal who had just been exposed to wine, beer, and malt whiskey, this was a whole new world. And I've loved it ever since, and it has made my transition to Texas a whole lot easier.
Yeah, really a tender moment for us too was Gordon's arrival. And when he came, we were all excited. And I think Matthew came right around the same time, maybe within a few days that Matthew arrived. We were so happy that Sarah and Michael would be agreed to be Matthew's godparents.
And Mike decided that an intriguing topic might be the following: the answer to the question, why do we call her Fluffy? For those of you who are more advanced thinkers than lawyers, I have tried to explain the fluffy phenomenon as a scientific phenomenon, which it actually is. It's can be comparable, but actually there's of the Grinch syndrome. The Grinch syndrome is one in which the brain is dominant over the heart. The brain is greater than the heart. In fact, in the case of Fluffy, we have a situation where her heart can take over her brain, causing her brain to swell so much that it is actually disabled. And thus the Fluffy phenomenon is heart is greater than brain.
Cheers. We figured to get us in the mood to talk about Sarah, we pretend we were at the Gage, so we put on our Gage bathrobes, right? And we got a drink. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sarah.
Sarah, you and I have particularly, I think, had some wonderful moments. I'm thinking of the time when you and I were fighting over who was going to make the fire. I think actually at the campsite, I think we actually did that probably at every campsite we got to. Like who was going to make the fire and who was going to be in control.
And then of course there were some really low moments, and the one that comes to mind for me is when we were in Zion National Park when your trailer died.
Oh.
And one of the things I love about Sarah is that, I mean, it was really, 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 really bad, because here we are in the middle of freaking nowhere, and their trailer is collapsed. And I know that Sarah was pretty upset about it, but the next day she had come up with a new metaphor for it, which it was a large Tupperware container. And that's one of the things I love about Sarah, is she'll just make it, ultimately she can get over anything and it gets to be a joke, and she just makes me laugh, and I really like
Yeah. Sarah, you have a terrific sense of humor, and you make us laugh. You make it laugh. You're able to laugh at yourself, and you, in that regard, allow everybody to laugh at themselves. That's really a gift you have.
I remember what it... Yes!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sarah. Happy birthday to you. As you can tell from the crack in my voice, this is good old Uncle Don. I love you, dear.
The quick story about Sarah is like all stories about Sarah. They're about being blonde. Excuse me, you're a salute, Sarah. Yes, I re-drank some and it was good. Sarah, remember when you came to the ranch and we told you about the hole? At New Year's Eve, when you spent the evening with us and you quickly drove your car off into the hole, and there's one tire in the hole and one tire on the ground, and your car will not go anywhere. Yes, we had to pull you out.
On Amanda's 50th birthday, everybody sort of came to the house, and Sarah was there. And she had to sleep in Colton's room, which had the snake. So she said to me, Joel, does that snake ever get out of that cage? I said, yeah, it got out one time. Went to the top bunk, because they had bunk beds in the room. And it slept under the pillow. So Sarah said, thanks. You know. So later on, Debbie Paddock, a friend of Amanda's and Sarah's, came up to the room. She was sleeping there too. She said, oh, Sarah, she said, I'm really afraid of the snake. Do you mind if I sleep on the top bunk? And Sarah said, oh, no, that's fine. You can sleep on the top bunk. I don't mind. Never telling Debbie the story that I told her.
Happy
birthday from your elegant sister-in-law. Little did I know when we met at Dad's poolside hacienda that I would not only get a demure sister-in-law, but her sophisticated mother.
We decided all to go out and eat Chinese food, and we all decided to go play laser tag. And so it was kind of neat to see how Sarah's tactical mind worked in this game, and she right off the bat she decided that her best tactic was just going to be float gracefully from room to room while getting shot to pieces, and it worked out real good for her, especially for everybody else in the room, because she provided such a great target.
Hello.
Sarah, I'm calling to wish you a happy birthday on your mid-century celebration. What a joy, sweetheart, that you've been to me and all of our family. You're so kind, so caring, so loving. What a joy. In my daily prayers, I want you to know that I thank God every day, several times a day, for you and my wonderful family. And so I close by saying God bless you and happy birthday, and know that you're always in my heart. Bye-bye, sweetheart, and I love you so much. Bye.
It was love at first sight. I remember when I first saw Sarah, she was introduced, Martha introduced her to our seminar, and she sprang up out of the chair, kind of in that bouncy way that Sarah has. And I just remember seeing her face. I can still see it right now. It's the face of unbridled joy. And while I don't think that I came clean on the issue for maybe a year, I really knew at that moment that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her.
What I really respect the most about Mom is even though she had this strong disagreement with the church, she still went to church with me every Sunday for 13 years. Just so that I could have my own choices and decisions with my faith.
I'm not one for being in front of the camera. I'm not good at talking. So, but I just want, Mom, I just want you to know that I know that I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in right now if it wasn't for you supporting me in whatever it was that I chose to do. So I just want you to know that I love you and I miss you.